So this is just going to be a really super quick, probably kind of messy, how I am going to dye. It's 3 skeins of this Skinny Superwash. I'm just dyeing in a color that I want to keep probably because I have no idea how far these 3 skeins are going to go. And so I really kind of want a deep royal blue color. Most of the rest of what I dyed has been lighter, and I've done a lot of speckle stuff, and this I kind of want more of a semi-solid. So that's kind of what I'm going to show here. So I have here a giant tub of sky blue, Jacquard, and then the Dharma Sapphire Blue, and then dark navy. I may or may not actually touch, depending on how it's setting. So the cool thing about this is that I can adjust the color really on the fly as I go, and the steps are really easy and quick. So I'm going to do a lot of jumping around and pausing probably while I do this, but hopefully I catch everything, and this helps you guys see how not scary acid dyeing really is. My one disclaimer is that I would not do this with 100% silk, just because it's a little less resilient to temperature fluctuations and the higher acidity that can sometimes happen with this, but I've never had an issue with any kind of wool with this. So yeah, I'll get started. Okay, so here's my little thing of supplies here, my dye. Here's the little bottle of urea and tablespoon scoop. And then you've seen these before, my little mini scoops for small amounts of dye. And then what I do is I actually soak these for, these soaked for about a day. And it's just in water, just to make sure that all of the wool is really saturated so that it takes up the dye evenly. And then what I'm going to do here is I just unloop the skeins, and I'm going to, in the middle of this, I'm going to spread it out, and then I'm going to put my dye spoon right through the middle of the loop on all 3 of these and use that to hold on to while I dip. Normally I would put on some of the thick yellow gloves that are a little bit heat resistant to do this, to save my hands, because the acid's a little bit strong and the heat obviously can be a problem, but yeah, I don't know where anything is here. Okay, now there's a couple of ways that you can do this basically. You can either just scoop the dye directly into the pot and let it disperse, and then when you do this, what's going to happen is the yarn that dips in there first is going to soak up the biggest amount of the dye. So if you want it really uneven, then that's a good way to go about it, because you're going to get a lot more of a gradient that way. It's not going to be a direct gradient because you have things in a loop, but it gives that kind of effect as you go around, and it tends to make it a lot more distinctive, a striping kind of yarn. I want it a little bit closer to a semi-solid, so what I'm actually going to do is kind of like what I would do when I'm mixing up the fiber reactive dyes, which is I'm going to use these little cups here. I'm going to put some urea in. I'm going to put different concentrations of these 2 dyes in. I'm going to put more of the sky blue and a little touch of sapphire in the first cup, and then I'm going to do more of the sapphire with a touch of sky blue in the second cup. So they'll be the same shades but different depths, I guess. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So I'm going to mix those up quick and then I'll come back. Okay, so this one has about 3/4 of a teaspoon of sky blue and about 1/4 teaspoon of sapphire. And this one has about 1/2 teaspoon of each. And it doesn't actually really matter that much how much water goes in here. It's not quite like the fiber reactive dyes this way. It more matters about the dye to yarn concentration here than it does to water, just because of the way that it pulls in. So I'm just going to get these to where they're not in powder form anymore. Okay, so I've been doing this just while the water's heating up. You can see it's kind of starting to get some bubbles going on, so I'm going to turn it down very slightly. This is a brand new pot and it's kind of not ideal. So I'm going to go ahead and add the mostly sky blue here. And I'm just kind of swirling it around with a plastic knife because I lack tools here. And okay, so down here is where I have my fancy spoon with the yarn attached. And I'm just going to start dipping it. And yes, the yarn is turning colors right in front of my eyes. So I'm going to then take it and shift the white part down into the water. See how it's kind of lighter setting in there, but it's picking up the color. It's not like anymore. Shift it around and make sure that the yarn kind of stays open so that it can penetrate into all the different parts of the skein here. Now I'm going to take my other cup here with the more sapphire, and I'm just going to pour it in on the side and start dipping. I'm going to repeat, but I'm going to leave just part of it where it's just the sky blue, the lighter concentration. So right now the yarn's actually mostly done doing what it's going to do. There's still quite a bit of dye in there. But you can see through most of it at least. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just pour in the vinegar. So high tech. And I didn't measure that at all. If I was going to do any speckling, I could either let this all set, or I could speckle like right on the parts here that are pulled out of the water. And that's when I would just kind of take this little thing and just kind of like tap it down here. That's what I did with the Merino Silk Sparkle that I can show you guys later. But so I kind of let this just chill for a few minutes because I don't want as much saturation in this part of it so that I have more depth of the color. But once this is done and most of the dye is out of here, I'm going to let this drop in and naturally cool down so that the vinegar and the water does help set this part right here a little bit better. But I'm not worried about this really bleeding or anything at this point. There's enough in there and there's just enough heat you can see from the steam, but no boiling. that this is totally fine, and I would, you know, do up to like 50-50 merino silk in here without an issue. Honestly, though, most of the time with this is just waiting for the pot to boil, or almost boil, I guess. So that's it. I just turned it off and plopped it down in there. I think it's taken me about a total of 20 minutes from pulling it out to having it ready to go. Because this is superwash, I could take the luxury of, you know, pouring cold water in here and just rinsing it all out right now. I don't trust superwash that much, so I'm going to let it cool down for the most part by itself and just put the lid on, and I'll deal with this in the morning with all the rinsing and stuff. But yeah, it's done.